Awesome, very Blavatsky. Dear friend, and now we are inviting our next lecturer, the PhD professor of philosophy, chair of Moscow State Aviation University, Russia, Moscow, Mr. Kolganov Sergey Vitalievich. You're welcome. The floor is yours.
Sergey graduated from the Technological Institute named after Tsiolkovsky, and he is a specialist for aviation engines. He had a PhD in the Moscow University named after Lomonosov as the methodology and sciences. He defended the dissertation on philosophy as the conception of unity and he also reads lectures, philosophy of the Oriental studies. He's the author of many publications, the philosophical anthropology. He is a member of the Russian Philosophical Society. He works in the Moscow Philosophical Institution. He gives lectures to bachelor, master degree students, and PhD students. Russia, Moscow, and his new speech. I give it the floor. Thank you. Dear participants, in my speech on the ideology of new conservatism on noospherogenesis, I'm going to talk about the new element of the human history. Now more than ever, it is necessary to have a strategic vision of the future. At the same time, it seems important to make a return to the past in the form of a kind of new conservatism. Here, by conservatism, we mean a return to spiritual and moral values, to the priority of the spiritual over the material, to the culture of inner life, to its cult, we can say. In our attempts to create the worldview of the man of the future, we need to start from the basic principles of its formation. We need to build a hierarchy of fundamental ideas like Platon used to do. This is the ideology, to which the best aspirations of mankind are evolutionary directed. Here we have tremendous achievements in the field of philosophy. First of all, in the philosophy of unity, based on the ideas of goodness, beauty, and truth. In Russian cosmism, with its idea of human liberation from the narrow space-time framework of existence and the development of new worlds and sources of energy. Thus, the problems of the present day have already been solved, one way or another, in the philosophy of unity and the Russian cosmism. These philosophical constructions are based on two interrelated concepts, unity and spiritual development. The latter, in the modern understanding, can be interpreted as the priority development and satisfaction of spiritual needs of a person. The unity in the concept of the greatest Russian philosopher of the 19th century, Vladimir Sergeyevich Solovyov, is expressed in several aspects. In terms of anthropological aspect, through the unity of truth, goodness, and beauty as the landmarks of human life, here the unity in the external world surrounding a person, in the area accessible to his five senses, in his absolute beauty. In the moral sphere, for example, for the human will, unity is the pursuit of the absolute good. And in the cognitive field, for the mind of the average representative of the genus Homo sapiens, it is the absolute truth. If we consider the epistemological aspect of unity, then the universal connections of the world reveal their essence to free theosophy, objective knowledge. Free theosophy means the unity of three types of knowledge. It's the empirical science, rational philosophy, and also mystical religion. This third kind of knowledge is based on intuition, faith, and establishing contacts with the All One. The unity of cognitive and ethical activity is also traced here. And finally, the third aspect, the ontological aspect, Unity is presented here as the unity of God, none and cosmos. Here, the Russian theosophical thought manifests itself on a truly cosmic scale. All thoughts about the freedom and immorality, or rather immortality of none, about his high cosmic vocation as a god none, lead to infinity. The cosmos is the unity in becoming, and it implies the coming transformations and human victories over space and time. None has a divine nature, and his creativity, merged with religion and morality, turns into theurgy, the divine action. This is the path of all-embracing love, creativity, and free movement towards goodness. Thus, the human life complements the divine life. And let's highlight three spaces of human activity. The first one is the natural material world, or the biosphere. The second one is a world artificially created by man for several hundred years, or the technosphere. And the third one, the world that's completely new, the virtual one, the world of games and dreams, communication and information, and new types of art. Global metamorphoses, shaking the material shell of our planet, are perfectly meaningful in the creative legacy of our great co-fatherland, Vladimir Ivanovich Vernadsky, in his theory of noosphere. The noosphere, as you know, is the geographical envelope of the globe, in which the main role is played by the transformations of matter, energy, and information, associated with the activities of a reasonable person. The noosphere is like a person, its bearer and creator, having a body, a soul, and a spirit. The body is a technosphere that unites all means and processing energy and matter, transport and communications. And the main purpose of noosphere technology is not the transformation of nature, and moreover, not its conquest, but the transformation of the technosphere, bringing it into life with a requirement to preserve the stability of the biosphere and the needs of people. Moreover, not only physiological, but high spiritual needs associated with work and creativity. The soul is a sociosphere that includes the totality of relations between people and social structures. And it's obvious that the main crisis of this day is not a completely reasonable approach to solving environmental, economic, and political problems of our time. And finally, the pearl, the spirit is the ideosphere, the sphere of ideal products of human activity, such as mythology, art, science, and religion. The ideosphere is the spirit of noosphere, is the most important part of the noosphere. This is the totality of all types of thought created by mankind. If you are on an island without other people, what will be needed here? So already in his youth, Vernadsky developed a conviction that the thought generated by human co-knowledge continues to exist outside his body. Some of the discoveries are made simultaneously in different countries by people who are in no way related to each other. Moreover, these discoveries, as a rule, are not a direct consequence of the intellectual efforts expanded by the authors, but may be explained by the presence of such a shell on our planet. All people are connected with the ideosphere, but the perfection of the thinking apparatus, as well as the level of education, the power of desire, and other aspects affect our ability to make discoveries. For successful creative work, we need to say no to the squandering of all energy resources from the inner planes of existence for the sake of momentary satisfaction of needs on the material plane. This leads to the energy bankruptcy of a person with subsequent deterioration of his health, depression, and the desire for pseudo-replenishment of energy with the use of narcotic drugs. We shouldn't waste our huge spiritual potential for the sake of external goals. And there have been many people who try to accumulate this spiritual knowledge. Hence, the special responsibility of a person for the state of nature and for his own thoughts. This approach corresponds to the general trend of development of everything from the lowest to the highest, and opposes the modern new ecological worldview, according to which a person should take his place in the biosphere, along with other representatives of flora and fauna, and limit the population growth of the planet Earth. The population growth is a natural process of evolution of the material system, striving for an ever higher level of organization. To reverse this process, giving way to the development of the plant and animal world, is the idea for those who do not keep up with the evolution. Those types of living organisms that are in the past should not be reanimated, should not be cloned. The geological force, according to Nizhny, is not Homo sapiens at all, but the mind, the scientific thought. Nizhny noted, in the 20th century, one single scientific thought covered the entire surface of the planet, all the states on it. Numerous centers of scientific thought and scientific research have been created everywhere, and this is the first basic prerequisite for the transition of the biosphere into the noosphere. Against this general and so diverse background, an explosion of scientific creativity of the 20th century is unfolding, regardless of the limits and limitations of states. Every scientific fact, every scientific observation, wherever and by whom they are made, enter into a single scientific apparatus and are classified and brought to a single form. Immediately, they become common property for criticism, reflection, and science work. A qualitatively new view of the world can be obtained when science and philosophy are combined. So it's science and another form of consciousness. Any particular science will not give any quality, a new discovery without a philosophical view of the world. The philosophical worldview, in general and in particular, creates the environment in which scientific thought takes place and develops. To a large extent, it determines it. And the basis of the Gnostic worldview is the harmonious relationship of scientific knowledge, philosophy, and religion. As Blavatsky said, the unified understanding, holistic understanding of the world is possible if the development of a fruitful and responsible attitude to it takes place. Before our eyes, the biosphere is changing dramatically, and there can be hardly an option that the restructuring of it by scientific thought, manifested in this way through organized human labor, is not an accidental phenomenon depending on the will of man, but is a spontaneous natural process, the roots of which lie deep and were prepared by an evolutionary process, the duration of which is estimated in hundreds of millions of years. This is a quotation by Vitalievich. Here we can see a hint of the accelerating evolutionary process leading to the decompression of the Earth's firmament. This is the manifestation on Earth of a new astrological epoch, which has a spiritual nature. In terms of the trust in astrology, Blavatsky spoke as follows in her secret doctrine. The future, as well as the past, always lives in the present. Ethics also influence the science of astrology. We have to recognize the truth of astrology whether we want it or not. And based on this kind of knowledge, evolution at a new stage is a process of refinement of matter environment. Material values, or golden toilets, cease to be symbols of wealth because they already are archaic. Now spiritual growth and flexibility of consciousness, the ability to move away from the stereotypes of the past, the development of the air element and the cosmos are the new price. A new progressive, air digital and freedom-loving era is beginning. It is the era of unrestrained technological progress. And the new system of values, the main thing, becomes not material, but mental and spiritual. Instead of the usual and already mastered growth environments in the world of the technosphere and biosphere, virtual worlds are being created that are involved in all spheres of our life, from production to leisure. The new era is characterized by digital transformation and the information revolution, online education, and digital economy, the development of augmented and virtual reality, the creation of metaverses, and the success of neuroscience. Virtual reality already fills up the inner world of the subject and helps to quickly realize the most daring dreams of humanity. Most of the astrological community agrees that the transition of mankind to a new era of development will come to completion in March 2023, when, in addition to the main planets of the solar system, Pluto will also enter the air sign. The main principle of preserving the form of the body will be non-resistance to high vibrational energies. At the height and respected in society, highly respected in society, will be the person who serves the interests of all, who contributes to the modernization of space. As a result of creating a new virtual reality, we get the opportunity to quickly implement the plan and its subtle maternalization. When modern devices begin to understand human speech, it leads us to a more thoughtful and serious attitude to words, and consequently to the same thinking that finds its expression in them. And it enables us to pay particular attention to the change of this artificial shell to the technosphere. It's the transformation of the technosphere, which has a negative effect on the previous stage in the development of human beings. Any developed technology is no different from magic. It's one of the Clarke's laws. In the 60s, in the 20th century, this phrase was first said. And today we use the things that may seem magical. In our pockets, there is still an unfinished, incomplete, but a magic wand in the form of a smartphone. Its current capabilities and functions are enough to order food, clothes, housing, transport, and much more. And we're only a step away from the moment when we'll be able to control new powerful productive forces, not with magic spells, but with a kind word. It's worth noting that already today, it is necessary to abandon traditional technologies in favor of the widespread introduction of nature-like technologies that spiritualize and revive the modern dead technosphere. Not the transformation of a person into a being inaccessible to spiritual development, but his spiritual development and the introduction of nature-like technologies to revive the dead technosphere is the main part of development. And finally, in conclusion, past life forms are becoming just a prehistory of humanity. Nizhny writes about this. He says, It seems to me that the construction of the noosphere that has begun with human thought and labor changes the whole situation of its history and doesn't enable us to simply compare the past with the present, as was permissible before. The basis of the noosphere worldview is the harmonious relationship of scientific knowledge, philosophy, and religion. Only with such a correlation is a holistic understanding of the world possible. At the same time, Vernadsky noted that humanity is living in a deep crisis of religious consciousness and is probably on the verge of a new religious creativity. The old religious concepts should be deepened and rebuilt. First of all, according to Vernadsky, under the influence of the growth of scientific thought, Vernadsky's philosophical reflections express faith in the inner mind of the world's evolutionary process itself, which must be known and followed. All the good things that have been developed in the Soviet world, as well as the world culture, must be implemented. And this is not a return to the old, which may be a transition to a new round of the spiral of development, but at a new technological level. On the way to the establishment of the global priorities of the spiritual, it is necessary to use all our political will. Thank you for your attention. Dear Sergey, thank you so much for talking about such a relevant topic, for talking about that. We all were able to notice that in the philosophy in Russia we have a lot of interesting works. It's the philosophy of unity based on the ideas of beauty, of truth, and this belief into internal consciousness is important. Blavatsky said that this is the universal consciousness. And I'd like to point out once again, you said in your report that it is the continuous importance of Russian philosophy. This gives us the concepts for spiritual development. You ran away from the mic and I wanted to ask you a question, but we will be able to discuss it online. And you said that the science has already overcome the crisis. And we have a different direction in which we're moving. I have a question. You represent science. You're at the roots of the Russian philosophy right now. Not only in Russia, but in many other countries of the world. And my question to you is, how do you personally see this exit of the aggressive line that brings separation in the world? And what is the way out of the situation? Are we on the right path? When we try to use the scientific foundation mostly. Just a couple of words, what do you think about that? Well, I think the priority should be given to science because the development of science has enabled the humanity to face such challenges as the change of the human nature we're talking about. So Kopsky wrote about it. These global challenges are due to the appearance of new technology, modern technologies, and these are new capabilities for human beings. World religions pose a question. Do we need the religious and philosophical thought? We need it to give the right direction for the development of the modern science. Thank you so much. Let's give a round of applause to Mr. Kolganov. Yesterday, we had correspondents, we had reporters from Nizhny Novgorod newspaper, and we were able to touch upon this subject. And in the end of our discussion, we came to a conclusion. If all religious confessions, if all religions in the world were able to get out of rituals in their activities, to forget about the medieval state of mind, but give the culture aspect to each religion. This would probably become the new part of the science. Thank you so much.